What's the weirdest thing a guest has done at your house? Story 1. I had some work people over for a dinner party at my house. We purposely shut off the lights leading upstairs to sort of let the guests know that the party is downstairs, i.e., there's nothing for you upstairs. Throughout the night, I would see one of my coworkers taking out the dip from his lip with his index finger and scraping it into his solo cup. A bit later, I went upstairs to check on my dog and hear some noises from the master bedroom. I walked in and saw the same dude using my toothbrush to get dip out from in between his teeth. He doesn't get invited to parties anymore. Story 2. Wiped there on the white sink hand towel after taking had plenty of available toilet paper. Called them out for it. They denied it, so I never invited them over again. Story 3. My friend treated my house like it was his own hotel room. I thought was coming to visit me and would coordinate for stuff to do. But it turns out he just wanted to save money on a place to sleep. He had his own plans and didn't tell me about any of them until he got to my place. And he even tried getting his other friend in the area to sleep at my place. I hadn't seen him in years, too. So I was disappointed that I planned my holiday weekend around my friend, but he had other plans. Story 4. He said he needed to look up something on internet. So I lended him my laptop. He then proceeds to watch on my couch while I'm 6 feet away from him. I took the laptop back. Story 5. First college party. A girl drank 1 beer and started acting like she was SU wasted, got fully naked and sat on my papasan chair. One of the most embarrassingly attention-seeking people I've ever met, lol. Story 6. Had a former friend visit me from overseas and literally disappear overnight to go, and some guy she'd been talking to online, leaving me to field a call from her husband, who wanted to know why his wife wasn't answering her mobile. Story 7. A co-ed of mine, a very much petite and super straight lace girl, attended a small party at my place with a few other people from uni. She usually doesn't drink much, but this night began to pick out and eat all the fruit from the self-made fruit punch. If you know anything about fruit punches, the fruit are absolutely soaked with alcohol. Way more so than the actual punch. We told her, but she continued to snack on the fruits. Just a bit slower, she ended up absolutely face drunk after short, while a tiny bit later, she'd disappear into the bathroom. Puking noises were heard, which probably was a good thing considering how drunk she was. After a longer time of silence, I knocked to check if she was fine. I got some indiscernible mumbling about maybe she could use some help, but maybe don't come on, but she can't do it alone. Maybe I could give her a frying pan or a spoon or something. I was very confused and told her I would open the door and to make sure she was dressed. When I came, she was blushed to the maximum, sitting on the floor. The whole bathtub was full of liquid vomit thinned with water and tons of fruit swimming around. She went on about how she wasn't able to clean the mess up alone. Apparently, she had been trying to shovel the whole tub full of vomit into the toilet, using her hands the whole time. That you do when drunk, lol. The bathtub was clogged up with fruit, so it didn't empty. I grabbed some stuff from the kitchen. She unclogged the bathtub with some tools. We filtered her the fruit with a sieve and drained and cleaned the bathtub. Well, most of me as she fell asleep on the floor during the process. Well, after the bathroom was done, I put up my camping bed in my room, grabbed some extra blankets and a small couch pillow, and tried to wake her up. She wouldn't, so I carried her over to the bed and made sure she was warm, put a bucket next to the bed and a small bottle of water. The party went on into the morning hours. When I woke up the next morning, or rather around early afternoon, she was gone. The bed was perfectly made. When I got to the living room, it was perfectly clean with no signs of there ever being a party last night. Same for the kitchen, minus a few remaining full bottled and snacks all nearly packed up in Tupperware, where there was a written note, well, more of a letter on length lying on the kitchen table. In her note, she explained in length how she was extremely embarrassed by what happened, that she was thankful how I handled the situation and that I remained calm. Also, she said that other guys she knows might have tried to take advantage of her drunk state, and she was happy I didn't for 1 second try anything. Lastly, she said to make up the mess she cleaned the kitchen and living room from all the party remains. Also, she made breakfast, which was in the fridge. Lastly, she'd be happy if I didn't contact her for a week or two, as she'd be too embarrassed to talk to me anyways. We became really close friends after that happened, but it was surely weird, both the bathtub full of fruit vomit juice and meticulously cleaning my flat the day after. Story 8. We were having a party at my house. It was weird as to begin with because my dad was having a hard time choosing between two women, head date one for a little while, then break up to date the other one for a little while, then realize he really loved the first one. It was a mess. Anyway, he invited them both to our house that night, and they both brought their kids, who were all around my age. There were 6 of us kids in all. My best friend was the first woman's daughter. Well, she had hatched a plan, and without really offering an explanation, convinced me to initiate a game of truth or dare. Her plan was for me to dare her to put her head inside my toilet and flush it. No clue why I agreed, but I did. I dared her. She immediately jumps up and runs to the bathroom. All of us following her lifts the toilet seat, submerges her head into the toilet water and flushes. One of the second woman's daughters is looking on at her, as if she's insane. She wasn't wrong, though, and there's all this commotion in my bathroom between the six of us, and our parents all come rushing inside to see what is going on. My best friend's mother's eyes go wide as saucers, and I swear I saw smoke coming out of her ears as she starts screaming at her daughter, pulling her head out of the toilet and wrapping her hair in one of my towels. At this point, I'm crying and struggling for air, because all of this is the most hilarious that I have ever witnessed in my short life. Her mother screams at me in this high-pitched, enraged voice to shut up because it's not funny and I have to leave before she tries to kill me too. My poor bestie got in big trouble for embarrassing the out of her when she was trying so hard to get my father to choose her over the other woman. Her mother convinced my father to punish me for daring her daughter to do that, even though her daughter was the one who wanted this to happen. The other mom and her kids left pretty much immediately, but when the others left, my bestie catches my eye, and she has this huge squints paliterous smirk the Sandlot on her face like, yeah, mission accomplished. She knew exactly what she was doing because that second lady never looked back, and my dad ended up choosing her mom for some crazy up reason. Story 9, it was me. I was visiting my brother and sis-in-law at their fancy new apartment, and I took a smelly. They had candles in there for just that sort of thing, so I lit two and hung around while the scent worked its magic. Not sure how, but I didn't notice the black smoke coming from the candles was leaving black streaks on the walls. I blew out the candles and tried to clean the walls. TP didn't work, so I used their white fancy towels. It still didn't work, but I ruined those towels trying. Eventually there was no escape but to fess up, so I did, and was mortified. Story 10, my roommate had the drummer figures of his band over. Dude heats up the metal end of his lighter and just sticks it on my ankle. Sober, burned the out of me, didn't say a word or acted like it was anything but innocent and amusing. I had never met them before. Between fight, flight, or freeze response, I've never been a freeze except for that day. Genuinely shocked. Story 11, a grown man in our house for the first and last time college academic team gathering. This was not a family friend, marked his height on our children's wooden growth chart in permanent Sharpa marker. Story 12 took the sample Mach 5 razor. It was new, and they had sent the whole neighborhood a full-size sample out of my mailbox. Then shaved all his pubes with it and leave them in my shower drain. Then proceeded to lie to my face about it. As if the pubes magically appeared on the very same day, everyone in the neighborhood got a new free razor in the mail, except for me. Story 13, I was a kid and invited another kid to my house 10 years old. When he showed up, he brought like 4 to 5 family members with him. No parents, just siblings and cousins. They stayed just a few minutes. Everything was awkward. They said they had to leave, insisted on knowing the way out themselves, and that was that. About 2 to 3 minutes pass, and I go to the kitchen for a drink, and they're all still in my house hiding behind the counters, stealing our silverware. My family is broke, as that was not real silver, lol. They all scramble for the door, and the kid never really explained anything at school. Turns out they were poor too. Just dumb kids knowing the weight of money too early. Edit Jonathan. I forgive you and am sorry for your lot in life. Story 14. When I was 14, my landlord came to our apartment to fix the toilet, and he took his pants off and did the whole thing in his boxers. I was alone with my mom and ignored him, but it was weird, and when I told my dad, he was furious. The landlord said he was going to a wedding later and didn't want to dirty his pants, but it was so weird that he just did it and never explained himself until my dad screamed on him. Story 15, my mom made a friend at her church who was in need of a place to stay, and we had a spare room. She ended up drinking about 25 bottles of my mom's wine in 1 week and ruining the mattress and rug with reddish-brown hair dye that we thought was blood for a long time. Story 16, I was the guest in this one, but once I fertilized a British couple's rose garden by puking a gallon of red wine and truffle stew all over it. I am not welcome back. Story 17, I threw a New Year's party once. Someone I invited brought a group of people who I knew, but didn't exactly enjoy the company of. Sometime around 1 a.m., I noticed that my keepsake urn necklace containing my brother's ashes was missing. Then I discover a couple of small lines of powder-like material in lines on my bathroom counter. They had tried to snort my brother and stole the necklace his remains were in. I was livid. Edit a word. Story 18 took the biggest you can imagine. Turd was so big it wouldn't flush. Made a land bridge right across the bowel. So she covered it with a ton of TP and then sprinkled perfume all over it to mask the smell. Small chick too. Story 19 wasn't my house, with friends. We had been invited over to drink and stay the night. We sat in the garden, talked and drank, and then one of our friends excused himself to the bathroom. He was gone for about 20 minutes until another friend said he will go check on him. He came back down 5 minutes later laughing his off. The dude had gone upstairs and ran a bubble bath from himself. lit a few candles, and even had a floating duck. The friend hosting was a cool guy and wasn't angry as we were all friends. Story 20 gave my dog drugs because, and I quote, she looked sad, so I thought some Molly would cheer her up. Looking back, though, I tried to be patient at first. After hearing his attempts at defending himself, my reaction was pretty harsh, and I do not regret a thing I said or did. That piece of... He gave MDMA to a 3-pound chihuahua and almost killed the only reliably good thing in my life, and the only thing that gave me any real sense of happiness, and he couldn't understand why I was so angry and had the nerve to try and press charges on me. Way too many of these involved shitting and him never letting anyone in my bathroom again. Story 21, my uncle, aunt, and my mom traveled from another country to visit while I was in college. They stayed at my place. I had to leave for a class in the morning and left them in the house to chill. When I came back from my class, my uncle had shaved my shin poo's legs down, thinking he did me a favor. My fluffy, cute dog looked so ugly with naked legs. What's worse, he somehow only shaved 3 and forgot the 4th leg. Story 22, one time my parents invited some of their friends over. They had 2 kids, a couple years younger than me and my brothers, a boy and a girl. Since I'm the only girl in my family, I was forced to play with the girl. I showed her around my room and stupidly showed her my stash of Nutella. After a few hours of playing Minecraft in my lounge room, she goes to the bathroom. She was taking pretty long, so I went to check on her, but she came out of my bedroom, Nutella on her face. I go into my room and check my stash to find one of my Nutella jars empty. I'm never rude to guests, so I let it slip by. I've never let her in my room ever since then. Story 23, get too high on acid and stuck on a loop of their undying love and lust for me and my partner, while their monogamous roid head, also on acid, got more and more angry. It obviously wasn't on purpose, however that doesn't make it any less weird. Story 24, I invited 6 people for Sunday brunch, including an acquaintance Kay who worked in my department. It seemed like a good opportunity to reciprocate an invitation Shed extended within the past few months, a big gathering at her house with her roommates. I stopped by for about an hour, had a delightful time amongst mostly strangers. It was a rare hot summer day in upstate New York, and I lived in a small house with no air conditioning. I woke up early to bake biscuits while it was a bit cooler, was running as many fans as I could to circulate air before guests came over. Through the buzz of the fans, I hear a knock on the door. It was Kay. She was here an hour before guests were invited. Oh, I was out for a morning walk, and then I realized I was in your neighborhood early. Thought I could help, and then she waltzed. I couldn't send her on errand because she walked over. This was her first time over, maybe while on foot. She needed to use the bathroom. Was it daylight savings time? My mind circled, trying to reason why on earth Shed show up without so much as a call text. I said I needed to hop in the shower. I was disgustingly hot, but she was welcome to add a batch of simple syrup to lemonade and pour herself a glass. Was in the bathroom for 5 minutes, and she got to work while I was in there. When I came out, Shed set food on the table, some which wasn't meant to be served. She also gathered branches and leaves from the yard and created a tablescape. We made small talk as I chopped vegetables for frittata, and she whipped eggs. She did most of the chatting. As other guests arrived on time, she offered them lemonade and asked them to take off their shoes. It then dawned on me. I had a guerrilla co-host. As I set one of the last dishes on table, she announced, "Come and get it," handed people silverware, offered to spoon different items on their plates. The last straw was when she went out onto my deck, picked unwashed mint, and tried to garnish someone's yogurt trifle. He pulled his plate away and said, "I don't want you touching my food." Mercifully, someone offered her a ride home since she had walked over. I.D. never felt so uncomfortable in my own home due to someone's well-intended gestures. Story 25, not too weird, but a friend was extremely up and tried to puke into my fish tank. Water a good puke spot, I guess. He reached, so I had to put him in a full Nelson and drag us into the bathroom and aim his head into a toilet. There were little puddles of puke all along the way. I had him clean it up the next day, but he was hung over so I still had to clean more when he left. Other than that, it was a good party. Story 26, while they took my fancy-ish bathroom trash can and put their feet on top of it so that they could be more efficient. They called it a squatty potty. I only found out because I went in to grab something and saw the brand new trash can had a huge dent in it. So asked what happened. He explained to me all about how it's a more efficient way to, and that I should try it. This same guy had been talking to me about potentially being a roommate. So I told him if that's how he was going to treat the place, I wasn't interested. A few days later, my house was egged. Still wonder if it was him or just some neighborhood kids. Story 27, an old neighbor got drunk at a poker game at my house. She then went into my bathroom, left the door open, and peed on the bath mat. My friend walked in on it, and the neighbor said it was because she couldn't find a light switch. The hall light was on, which fully lit up this tiny bathroom. Story 28, not just a weird thing, but a weird tradition. My former parties were known for being a bit on the exciting side. Some of my women friends started a tradition of hanging their bras on my dining room chandelier. when I'd throw a party as a blessing of Bacchus. As soon as they got to my place, off comes the bra, hanging on the chandelier, get their first drink. They didn't get topless, mind you, just hung their bras over the alcohol. I think the record was 14-ish. Story 29, my ex-girlfriend took it in my parents' bathroom, and she pressed flush after it didn't go down the first time. Cue stream of water and toilet paper flooding the floor, getting in the air vent, and spilling out into the hallway. She was inconsolable and couldn't bring herself to come over to my parents' house ever again. She never saw them after that. Story 30, my cousin was in high school when she decided to bring all of her high school friends in our house. My dad was at home that time, so he decided to cook lunch for these high school girls. So when my dad was cooking, he noticed that these girls are coming out of our restroom, facing the hallway, where my dad was cooking, just covered with towels and being loud as my dad was quite shocked and irritated. My cousin and these girls didn't tell my dad that they'll also take a shower as SMDH. I knew well that they also used our bathroom stuff and didn't even apologize for leaving our restroom dirty. Some people can't buy manners. Story 31, a girl that I barely knew flushed down one of these smell good thingies that sits on the edge of a toilet. Whole bathroom floor had to be ripped up and the pipes needed to be fixed. Story 32 says she was a vegan, so only brought with her some seeds, nuts, etc., but cooked and ate white chops before I got home from work. She had no company over, so it was her. Story 33, an ex, and I had an apartment years ago. She was still in touch with an ex. The ex and his GF wanted to come to the area, and we invited him and his GF to stay with us for the weekend. We all hit it off at dinner, great conversation and laughs. It was a great Friday night. We had a spare bedroom, and that's where the two of them slept. FYI, we used this spare room also to store a few things and to put our dirty clothes in hampers. I got up in the middle of the night to the both of them snacking in the kitchen. No biggie, I do it too, and I told them to make themselves at home. Well, after chatting and having some chips dip, I caught on to what they both were wearing, our clothes. What? Now I know that people sometimes offer up clothes like Smith's clothing to a guest that isn't prepared, but they brought bags with them. What in the heck was in their bags that they needed to wear our clothes? Worst part was the shorts and t-shirts that they both had on were dirty, and visibly so. I told them we had clean clothes and offered that up, but they said they were fine. They ended up leaving the next morning, but who stays at someone's place and wears their dirty clothes? WTF? Yeah, we laughed about it after they left, but I couldn't help but be creeped out. Story 34, definitely one of my friends went to a party I was hosting. I didn't mind him being there. I just encouraged him to be himself and not be introverted. He took that pretty literally. There were a few memorable things he did that definitely fit in this criteria. One, we were lightly drinking some beers and wine, nothing serious. He was shotgunning every beer we gave to him, then screaming after finishing a beer. Every time, too. Shortly after he was pretty buzzed, he was out in my backyard shirtless in 6F snow, throwing snowballs at my neighbor's windows for like 15 minutes, nonstop. 3, it was a night party. We requested everyone only drink in moderation so they can drive home, or at least call an Uber. We don't have a guest room or a large couch to sleep on. He passed out in our garage on the concrete. We found him the following morning laying in his own vomit floor. When he was leaving, he asked if he could use a shower. There's 2 showers in the house, the master bedroom shower and the guest shower. He took a shower in the master bedroom shower. 5, as he was leaving, he shotgunned a beer, screamed at 7 in the morning in my front yard, then peeled out his 90s Civic. Story 35, NSFW warning here. Younger cousin was jacking off in the rocking chair in the living room for some odd reason. It was really gross, and I made him go to the bathroom once I found out. His brother told me he kept doing it everywhere. Now, every time I think I'd done something embarrassing at someone's place, I think at least I didn't in full view for any to see. One day, my mom, stepdad, and I and 2 of mom's friends were in my complex pool showing her friends around our new complex. Her male friend said he needed to go to the bathroom while we were down in the pool area, so we showed him to the toilets, and he went into the disabled bathroom. We're not sure what he did in there, but he was in there for a long time, and we're assuming he shat all over the walls or missed the toilet. Someone went in after him and walked straight out and got a security guard, and shortly after the toilet was completely blocked off and was being cleaned out and was still closed for cleaning and maintenance 3 days after it happened. Story 36, New Year's Eve party. He got super drunk and lecherous. Wouldn't leave my housemate's GF alone. Kept putting his arms around her and stuff. I told him that if he touched her again, he was leaving. And he got mad at me and said, "Look at her. How do you expect me not to touch her? Sure, she's pretty, and I think we all have a bit of a crush on her, but none of us are touching her up or being creepy. MF makes my skin crawl." Story 37. When I was a kid, I had one of my friends over for dinner. We passed a pot of macaroni around the table, scooping it onto our plates with a wooden spoon. I don't know if he just wasn't paying attention or what, but the pot got to him, and he just sat it on his plate and began eating the macaroni directly out of the pot with the wooden spoon. I looked at my mom, and she was like, oh. Story 38, the one coming to mind, is the pizza delivery guy who got out of his truck, stretched his legs for a couple of minutes, and even went into the splits at one point before casually sauntering to the front door to hand over the pizza. We were all at the window, spying on him in shock. Story 39, my cousin came to visit me and brought a friend. He looked like a junkie. 10 minutes after they arrived, his friend was looking really nervous, got up and pulled down every blind in my lounge room and was peering from behind out the window and asking me if I was expecting anyone or if anyone usually comes down my driveway. I honestly thought he was about to murder me. My cousin then asked me if he and his friend could smoke. I said yes, thinking they were talking about cigarettes, and then proceeded to pull out a crack pipe and start smoking meth. They then told me about how they drove for 2 hours at 180 km/h to get on a huge amount of meth and wanted to try it out. I couldn't get them out of my house fast enough. Story 40, this one guy used my bathroom and couldn't unclog the toilet. He admitted to me that he considered just leaving, but instead asked if I could do it for him. It was a peculiar first date. Story 41, had a guest accidentally book their flight a week early. Tell us one day before. Showed up and stayed a total of 17 days. They were strung out on Adderall, antidepressants, and antipsychotics. We found this out because they were acting so weird, and we checked their bag when they were out trying to refill their RX. Took them 3 hours with Google Maps to find a pharmacy 1 mile away. They repacked their bag, sometimes twice a day. I was kind of scared. We slept with the door locked. Story 42, I have this friend who told me she smelled my shampoo when she went in the bathroom. Apparently she does this to every house she visits. She smells their shampoo and body wash. Story 43, one night, my homie roommate came back with a co-worker servers who needed a place to crash. So of course we offered him a spot at the crash couch. He was this weird screech-looking fur that really didn't fit with our whole party vibe. But I know, when a friend asks for help, you help him. Also, he had the funniest reason to need to crash. Dude lived on a sailboat, but somebody stole his rowboat that day. So how could I say no to him too drunk to swim home? Anywho, we set him up on the couch while the party is still raging, and he pulls me aside and asks, hey man, what are your magnetics like? What face? I can't sleep unless the magnetics are just right. So like, are they? I don't know, man. We got some train tracks across the road and a cemetery down the way. Does that help? Perfect. I wouldn't usually ask, but could you tuck me in just in case? What face? Version 2.0, you're right. I grown man tucked him, another grown man in his sleep. Story 44, punch me in the face because I didn't like the same cartoon as them. We were really little. Oh, well, suffice it to say no more play dates occurred with this person. Story 45, had someone wipe after pooping and throw the soiled toilet paper away. I had went to throw something beside the trash can and missed, and it went in, so I went to grab it. I noticed the smell immediately. I left whatever it was in the trash can and scrubbed my hands raw. My only explanation is maybe they thought we had a different type of toilet system than we do. Story 46, when my sister and I were kids, 21-17, we had a big party when our parents were out of town. A few days after their return, one of the toilets started acting up. Dad found an entire Taco Bell taco, still taped up in its original wrapping, in the tank. Only one kid had Taco Bell that night. We got busted, but Taco in the tank wasted was born that day. Story 47, my wife's sister was over to visit for a few days and is a vegetarian. For every meal we ate, I made vegetarian alternatives also, and during every meal, she told us how terrible we are for eating dead animals. Story 48, I have an antique grand piano. It's the kind of thing I don't want people to really mess with. 2 times I let drunk women play it when people were over and they started smashing the keys. One with her hands, just being stupid, and the other one actually put her boots on the keys and started stomping on them. I was so pissed I picked her up and drug her to the porch and made her leave. A while later, I saw her at a bar and gave her the worst look. Finally, she asked what my problem was, and I told her what she did. She said she never did that and denied even being in my house. I hate that people get blackout drunk and don't even remember that they do. Story 49, this guy had previously tried to kill himself by drinking some type of acid, something corrosive, and lost his esophagus. He came to my city for some surgeries, and my mom offered for him and his family to stay in our house. They ended up staying for months. He fed himself through a gastrostomy, but would still sit at the table with us during meals, chewing his food and spitting it into a bowl. Then he would proceed to cough and clear his throat and spit up pieces of food in the bathroom sink. Tough couple of months. Story 50, when I was younger, I was saving up money to buy a Nintendo game. It was a few days after I celebrated my birthday. I'd gotten some cash and put it in my piggy bank. I own a lot of piggy banks and put one of them on display. There was 5 sticking out. A very distant family member came over with her parents. I showed her my room. After she left my 5 left with her, I was so sad. I told my mom. She told her parents. We went over to their place for a visit, and to get my money back, she had put my money in her phone case, handed it over to me, I'm still pissed. The whole situation felt weird, but keeping my money in her phone case is what felt the weirdest. Story 51. In college, a girl who was a friend had a bad breakup earlier in the day, proceeded to get wasted and start crying. I let her have some alone time in my room to get out during a party. Went to go to bed later and realized she had pissed in my bed and soaked my mattress foam. I threw it away and she bought me a new one the next day, so not that bad. Didn't want to make her feel bad, so my ex that knew her better than I did talked to her about the whole thing and worked it out LL. I knew she was a spoiled rich girl, but geez, just walked like 5 feet out my door and take a. Story 52. Brought their small dogs to lunch. Dogs then used our kitchen floor as a toilet, and they proceeded to blame my toilet-trained and fully dressed small child. Story 53. My friend just told me the story of a guy who got blind drunk at his house and took a dump on top of his freestanding fireplace. While it was on, I can't imagine how bad that would have smelled. Same dude had a problem in random spots of houses that weren't the toilet. I've met the guy. Seems really nice. No way he's getting anywhere near my house, though. Story 54. I had a friend come to stay one weekend. In the morning, she was up before me, and I found her going through my cupboards. Rather rude. The reason was she was curious. After she left, I had crockery missing and didn't connect the two until I visited her some months later at her home. It was unique crockery, part of a set from another country and old, definitely my missing pieces. So I simply took it home and didn't say anything, still confused by this, but wouldn't have her stay again, ever. Story 55. Stole my 7-month-old baby's piggy bank. He had hurt his back at work the previous summer and was given pain meds to treat it, became addicted, and was secretly using street drugs. That was how we all figured out he had been the culprit behind a bunch of missing money, jewelry, and medications from all our friend group's homes that year. Thankfully, that confrontation ultimately led to him realizing he had a problem and seeking out treatment. Story 56. Wait till you're in the bathroom and sneak into a closed bedroom they know isn't for them. Beyond rude, it's creepy, and I have never had that guy over again. Story 57. I won't go into details because it's pretty gross, but he came on one of the guest beds on purpose. I rubbed his face in it like a dog. Yeah, it got weird. Story 58. Some friends came over to my house, and at some point my best friend and his girlfriend went outside to smoke some weed. Needless to say, they were high AF after that. Problem is, my parents were at the second floor of the house, so I told my best friend to keep it quiet and not be too obvious about being high when he enters the house. Next thing he does is enter the house, and then screams, "I am not high, I swear." Story 59. Had some friends over for the evening. One of them decided to clean their ears using the tips in the bathroom. The end of the tip fell into their ear canal. I had to lend them tweezers so they could fish it out. Story 60. Not me, but my parents, back in the early 60s, we had a home on Cape Cod that had been in the family for nearly 200 years. But we lived elsewhere and went to the house on weekends, and during the summer, my parents frequently invited friends to stay with them at the house. One time, some friends who had stayed there previously and who also went to our church asked Mom and Dad if they could use the house. My parents agreed and gave them the key. The next time we went to the house, we discovered that they had painted the kitchen window trim and sills red. They had also stopped up the toilet, which uses a septic system. But the kicker is that the next time the church bulletin came out, there was an item thanking this couple for hosting their son's Sunday school class at their charming home on Cape Cod.